Hello, it's David again, and I got with me my friend Dale Huysman. Thank you, Dale, for coming in today.
Certainly.
Dale is a great resource that I work with that works for Allstate handling insurance, and we wanted to share some ideas with you today. Some of the different things that you might not have thought about for when you're getting your homeowners policies, or what things are really covered and what's not. So we're going to dig into that a little bit more. And Dale, anything you want to tell them on a quick background of where you've been and what you're doing or how you got into this?
Oh, yeah, just been with Allstate for 28 and a half years now, and I've enjoyed pretty much 99% of the time. It's a great, great company to work for, and we do a good job making sure our claims are paid.
Okay, that's good. You don't want to pay a lot out, but you do at least that. You make us happy when we get our money.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
But let's dig in today. We wanted to look at a few things. One of the things I think we talked about is just homeowners. Let's get kind of the basics down, then we can go into what these different things are. There's some words that we use at times with each of our professions that other people might not know. So if we can get into that a little later, then people know what to ask, and to make sure they're getting covered right. So
absolutely.
The first thing, what would you say is the first kind of important basic to getting there? I mean,
well, each home is going to be a different risk totally, and a lot of it's the zone and the town class where they're located as far as the fire district rating. And the major factor that you really have to consider is for the pricing is the dwelling cost. You want to make sure you use the replacement cost technology indicator and insure the home to value to make sure that if there is a total loss, the insured isn't going to be suffering a co-insurance clause, which means the insurance company isn't going to have to pay the full replacement cost of the home.
So if I could putting that in English even more or something, if someone gets has a claim for some reason, the house burns down or whatever, you want to know that the whole house is covered. Mm-hmm. And maybe I've heard things too where some people will over-insure. They'll insure the property, the land, and the home. Mm-hmm. And maybe we could talk about that too. Is that kind of something different you need to know? Or
yeah, that's completely different. The dwelling value is a set amount based on the square footage, the type of construction, wood, frame, brick, and then you can put a builder structure reimbursement limit on top of that, which goes up to 140% of what the dwelling is insured for. Okay. So that gives you a cushion. Even though you're paying on $500,000, you're going to be covered for 40% more than that if there's a total loss. And that's the key foundation of a homeowner's policy is the dwelling.
Okay. And what's really covered there in a homeowner? You say the dwelling. I mean, is that all the contents inside too, or how do you break that down to make sure you've got things covered?
Yeah, on a dwelling, you want to make sure you have a special form policy which is going to cover all of your perils you can think of with the exception of certain exclusions like flood, wear and tear, insect damage, continual seepage, and things like that. But let's say you have your home insured for $500,000. Your outbuildings and fences would be insured for 10% of that, or $50,000. Okay. And you can increase that if you'd like, but that's a separate category. That's your second category. It goes coverage A is a dwelling, B is outbuilding and fences. Then C is a completely separate category, which is your contents, which normally is 50% of the dwelling, or it can go up to 70 or 80% of the dwelling if you want to endorse it higher.
Okay, and so endorsing it, that was a word you and I were talking earlier, and you brought that endorsement. I mean, we're not endorsing Pepsi or something like that. So it's a word that I should be aware of when I come talk to you about. I want to endorse something. What does that mean, or what would be items that I might endorse? Yeah,
good question. You have to. You have your basic policy, and if you want to customize it or change it or add coverages or increase or lower coverages that are with the basic policy, then you endorse the existing policy, okay, the base policy.
Would that be things like if I've got musical instruments or pieces of art that are very expensive and something along that line, or say I got a coin collection or for items that I think are, worth some extra value. Is that kind of what you're saying, endorsement?
Yeah, that's exactly right. When you endorse a policy, you can add building codes coverage, which brings the replacement of using building materials up to today's standards. If you have an older home and it's built, let's say 2x4 construction, and today's standards, you need to be a 2x6. And then also, you can have loss assessments if you're in a homeowners association and you need protection for that. If there's a claim against the HOA, you can endorse that into the policy. But what you're talking about with fine arts, paintings, and things like that, that's scheduled personal property endorsement, which is you're endorsing cameras, jewelry, watches and furs, fine arts, guns, musical instruments, business musical instruments. There's a whole array of categories that you can endorse onto the policy.
So now you said something there, a business musical instrument. What is that compared to just, I got the piano sitting in the, or my guitar in the house or something. What do you describe as the business one?
Well, let's say you use a musical instrument to play at clubs, or you're using it to make income, or you use it in a business. Then that needs to be endorsed onto your policy for it to be covered away from the home and while being used at another location. Okay.
So in other words, my homeowner's policy wouldn't necessarily just cover that item because I threw it in the car and took it somewhere, but if it was under this, if I was using it for the business, let's say. So if I'm out playing clubs and something gets left behind or stolen there, it's covered under the homeowner's policy because I've used the word endorsement. Is that correct?
Yes, and you've paid a little extra money to endorse it onto the policy, certainly.
Right.
And when you do that, normally what it does is it waives your deductible and it covers it for mysterious disappearance. There doesn't have to be visible signs of breakage and entry. And also, it covers it anywhere in the world. So the cost per thousand is very, very affordable, and it's a great coverage to have.
All right. What's some other things you had on this list here? What are some things you'd want to make people aware of if they came to you and said, Dale, David recommended you come see me, and says he's been working with you for many years, so I want to know what to do, and I want to be able to speak in English, which Dale does a good job of that.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the most important things is making sure your dwelling is adequately covered. And then another thing is, another category is liability, which comes with a policy, and it covers you at your home and away from your home anywhere in the world. So if you commit a negligent act and somebody sues you, your liability is kind of like a little personal umbrella policy that follows you and family members around. And then the next category, you want to have at least $500,000 on that, I would recommend. And then that's an underlying amount that you need to have in order to get an umbrella policy, which would cover $1 million above that if you commit a negligent act anywhere in the world. And then guest medical covers your guests at your home for first aid, emergency room, x-ray, ambulance, and things of that nature if guests get hurt at your property. And then if they find that you're negligent and they want to sue you, then they go right up into your liability.
So the suits could be what? Because of, well, our society too would say a lot of alcohol served and they go out and get in an accident, or they fall in your pool or something there. This is what you're saying might be considered a negligent item.
Most definitely, or breaking your leg walking through the backyard and you step in a hole in the ground.
Okay, something where you dug to plant something and you didn't fill it in yet.
Right.
Okay.
And I would much rather see people carry higher liability limits and higher deductibles, so we keep the premium down. But I'm not concerned about a $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000 deductible as much as I am about a $500,000 lawsuit.
Okay. Cool. What else? What else is on your list there today? Anything?
Oh, we kind of covered endorsements that we can put on and scheduled property, like fishing equipment, sporting goods equipment. If you're fishing and you have deep sea equipment and your pole falls over the side, unless that's endorsed onto the policy, you're not going to have coverage for it. Because you have to have, under contents, it's a named peril coverage, which is fire, lightning, wind, hail, theft, riot, vandalism, visible signs of breakage and entry. But when you endorse something onto a policy, then it moves it into an all-risk category. even mysterious disappearance, which we mentioned before.
Okay. So that brings up another thing too, like a boat. If you said fishing equipment, you got a boat parked on the side of your yard or an RV. You know, if you've got boat coverage with you or RV coverage, then so that would cover it the same. It's not necessarily under the homeowner's policy. That would be just kind of like when you insure your car or your boat or your RV, they have their own coverage there.
Exactly right.
Okay. Is there any difference on, say, contents are from the home that are in your car or the boat and they're damaged? Because they're on that endorsement, they're okay if they're out in the boat? Or, I mean, you have to look at how you set up that policy.
Yeah, if you have them endorsed, they're covered anywhere in the world.
Okay.
But yeah, if you have a radio or something in your car which can be installed where the manufacturer wants you to install the radio and things like that, sound reproducing equipment, that has to be endorsed onto your auto policy.
Okay.
But if it's something that you just have in the car or you're using it to go to the beach or listen to a radio out away from the home or something, and you want to endorse other sound reproducing equipment, that needs to be endorsed onto your homeowner's policy.
Okay. And when you do that endorsement, do you have to have like serial numbers or a photograph of it and keep a file? And does that have to be like a copy in your file in your office, or is it something I can have in a booklet and say, here's what I had and here's the proof of what I've paid for?
Yeah, that's a good question. All of the above. You want to have as much as you possibly can. Photos, some people videotape their homes and put it in a safe deposit box. Serial numbers, appraisals, especially on jewelry, any items over $2,500, you need to have an appraisal.
Okay.
Yeah, as much proof, where you bought, receipts, as much proof as you can get. Photos, yeah, that would make the adjuster's job easier.
And you made a point there too. You said if we put that like a video and put it in the safe deposit box, because I would see where that would be like a comfort for me to say, all right, I've made a video, I've got proof that I have this stuff in my home, and I don't necessarily want to have it sitting a video in your file in your office if somebody breaks in or something. I mean, you know, we're all in this conscious of not trusting where our stuff is nowadays or something getting picked up. So really, as long as I've got proof possibly of it in the home, my ownership of it, I can tie it to that in the video. I can keep that for myself, just keep it somewhere, and then produce it to you if we need a claim or something.
Absolutely, and especially if you have photos of you wearing your jewelry,
Okay.
or you using a camera or something like that you can produce.
Cool. All right. And now, what would that be? Values, we talked a little bit about the home values. If you had a piece of equipment, a musical instrument or something, so is that also for the value? You know, because it may cost more to buy that guitar now than it did, you know, 10 years ago when you got it. Is it up to today's amount, or how?
When you schedule it on a policy, you want to schedule it for an agreed value or replacement on that certain item. That's why it's important to have appraisals or a recent bill of sales or anything that can give you the replacement cost of the value at today's standards. And people go in and get jewelry appraised every few years.
Okay. Cool. Anything else you can think of that we kind of summarized some stuff before we got started with this today? Was there any other things on our list that we haven't covered or that you'd want to bring up?
Oh man, the biggest thing I would think would be the liability.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just keep the liability limits as high as you possibly can, and if that's going to stretch your premium dollars, raise your deductible so you can keep your liability up there.
All right. And if someone wants to get a hold of you, Dale, how would they do that? What's the best way to get in touch with you? You're here in Gig Harbor, but you'll cover pretty much the whole Puget Sound, won't you?
Oh, most definitely. We're licensed in Washington State, and you can reach us at our office in Gig Harbor, Pioneer and Kimball, right next to the drive-through Starbucks.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Doing it. And what's your phone number there? And is there an email, or what's the best way to get a hold of you? Just phone?
The best way is telephone 253-858-9500.
Okay. And that'll be either you or you've got another associate there that works with you too, right?
Right. The agency owner, his name is Jim Bannon, and I work for him.
Okay. So we either call Jim or Dale. I've known them for Well, I've known you for about 3 years, I guess now, and Jim I've known back, when he was doing policies when we got here back in '93 or something. So yeah, I've been around quite a while. Good people to work with. The nice thing I like about working with you two, Dale, is that you follow up. So you can look at me now and look at this when if I refer Dale to you and he says he's going to call you, he will. Or if you want to call him, don't feel funny about making the call. Very easy to get along with and very good at spending the time with you like you did with us today. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And maybe we can do some other. We'll see if anybody's got some certain questions that they want to get. Go ahead and just send those in to me, and we'll get them to Dale and see what we can do to make another video for you and try to get all your questions answered. But the best thing too, you can give him a call anytime. So thanks again, David Cathers, and a great guest here, Dale Huysman from Allstate Insurance.